movie Avengers Endgame is an extremely emasculating film that denigrates and derides any and all forms of masculinity, which attempts to replace the masculine with the pseudo-masculine, personified through the gender-swapped Captain Tampon, the atrocious delegation of duty by Thor abdicating, and the implication of Ironheart. The beloved characters have been nerfed to make their replacements more palatable to sheeple. Fat Thor, Professor Hulk, neutered Tony Stark, murderer Hawkeye, all the way to coping mechanisms meetings by Captain America. Never mind the fact that the ultimate solution comes from Ant-Man, who is so beta that he's basically a side character in his own movies, which are funny cuckfests in and of themselves. When Thor petulantly murders Thanos, rather than bringing him back to face judgment, he broke character, displaying cowardice by attacking a stronger opponent when they were in a weakened state, and in the process of surrender no less, out of spite for his own failings. Honestly, this was done solely to tear down Thor as a hero and prepare the audience for the spectacle of Fat Thor. But before we move on to Fat Thor, let's take a moment to discuss Stormbreaker and the differences between Infinity War Thanos and Endgame Thanos. When Stormbreaker breaks through Thanos' use of the Infinity Gauntlet at the end of Infinity War, it lodges itself in his chest until he uses the gauntlet to leave, whereby Stormbreaker drops to the ground, as he is unworthy of wielding it. Then during the battle with Endgame Thanos, Thanos intercepts Stormbreaker, catching it and trying to kill Thor with it, who is stunned that Thanos could be worthy. So why was Infinity War Thanos unworthy? Well, because he murdered Gamora, then committed universal genocide. However, while Infinity War Thanos was unworthy of wielding Stormbreaker, the Endgame Thanos was unworthy of wielding the Infinity Gauntlet. Infinity War Thanos coerced, sacrificed, and struggled to collect the stones, and earned the right to use it as he saw fit, whereas Endgame Thanos tried to cheat his way to a completed gauntlet, and by extension was prevented from using the gauntlet, with the only stone he uses being the Power Stone, which was the only stone acquired without coercion, etc. When we meet Thor, he is presented as a pathetic joke, having abandoned his duty of rebuilding Asgard, or preparing for the next threat, in favour of a sedentary, hedonistic lifestyle built around threatening children and playing video games, while reliving former glory. In this fashion, Thor was torn down as a pillar of strength whose courage inspired through his hero archetype and learning humility, becoming the bloated bully compensating for his mistakes through self-indulgence. His former self-confidence is gone, and he overcompensates in social situations, and is even surprised when Mjolnir comes to him. When Thor decides to abdicate rulership of the Asgardians to the Valkyrie, it is a gross dereliction of duty, as without either royal blood or political savvy, the Asgardians, now diminished, are sure to split over such a decision. Never mind the fact that she was introduced to people as a human trafficker with rage issues and a severe alcohol problem, specifically because she had failed to protect the kingdom in the first place. There is literally no justifiable reason to preference her over one of the surviving nobles whose experience might prevent a rift. But strong white men must be brought down, bringing us to Professor Hulk. Professor Hulk is an abomination that never should have been made. Much like with Fat Thor, Professor Hulk exists as a prototype template for the pseudo-masculine, a neutered beta male whose strength is lowered and whose primal nature is replaced with a sociable but passive-aggressive male, who communicates indirectly and goes along with the crowd. His natural instincts are so out of whack that he is clearly uncomfortable in being himself when expected to do so in the past, where he is rendered impotent by the first woman that he meets. Bowing to the gods of feminism allows him to sacrifice an arm to use the stones, taking him out of the final battle in any meaningful way. Although he is just a prototype who ultimately can be removed from the story without losing anything particularly important. The truly tamed beta male is Tony Stark. When we are introduced to Tony Stark, he is drifting randomly through space on a spaceship with Nebula, apparently short on supplies and ready to die, when suddenly, for no reason at all, Captain Tampon shows up to save him. But why was he in a position to require that help? He built a mech suit using scraps in a cave, but he can't retrofit a functional spaceship with his own servitor on standby? Nonsense! Never mind the fact that Nebula should have been able to guide him to ports to limp home anyway. Bottom line is he was set up to be a damsel in distress for Tampon to save. When we are reintroduced to Tony Stark, he is a shell of his former self, muted and reserved, cautious to the point of dereliction of duty, having lost the hunger for fun and excitement, as well as his ambition and drive for scientific progress, effectively only agreeing after his wife gives him permission. Due to going full beta, as well as inventing time travel, they allow him to sacrifice his whole body using the stones, as this has the bonus of removing any charisma and fun from the series as well. When we see Hawkeye, his family disintegrates, turning him into an angry, bitter loner who takes his problems out on other people. Noticing a theme here. Undoing his redemption arc and presenting masculinity as a dangerous drug that takes over once the calming influence of women is removed. Additionally, he is cheated out of redemption once again when he loses a suicide competition to a woman who didn't spend the last 5 years murdering people. Then again, she was barren, and population is a factor. Since Infinity War, Cap has been squandering his time hosting group therapy sessions to compensate for his sense of failing, which is the least productive thing he could be doing. Why is he not out fighting crime, or at least stopping his former ally from murdering people? Hell, even spreading his super soldier seed to prepare for repopulation. Instead we get Captain Agony Ant. Since it had been hinted at, they let him wield Mjolnir, and in the process was actually able to temporarily hurt Thanos. However, this actually diminishes rather than enhances Captain America, as while he gained a temporary advantage, he was still overpowered and the power was borrowed anyway, and he was not able to hurt him by his own power. And as a team, using their strengths combined, Thanos still used Iron Man to block Mjolnir. This Johnny-come-lately was retconned into the 90s for the sole purpose of supplanting Captain America as the first Avenger. However, this makes Nick Fury's refusal to push the summon a demigod button incredibly stupid. When the Council fired nukes at New York, he had no reason to assume Iron Man would sacrifice himself. He thought the man was too selfish to be allowed in the Avengers. Why didn't he push the button? When Ultron dangled the city over the Earth, why didn't he push the button? Why didn't he push the button at the start of Infinity War, when a spaceship crashes and he doesn't know where Thor, Iron Man, Spider-Man and Hulk are? Having this button and not using it makes him an idiot. Despite being the female replacement, she is decidedly lacking in feminine traits, both physically in her masculine haircut and overall appearance and inability to smile, as well as psychologically coming across as very aggressive and confrontational, often stooping to petulance to assert her dominance. By tying Stark's survival and finding Thanos, the writers offset any sacrifices they make with, but he couldn't if she didn't, which sets her up as the saviour. which they mirror Thor destroying Thanos' ship with Stormbreaker by having her do it unaided in this film. After this, they have Thanos with an Infinity Gauntlet being overwhelmed by Captain Tampon single-handedly and without borrowed power, to the point where he had to use the Power Stone just to get rid of her. This is a slap to the face to every single character in the MCU, to have this Johnny-come-lately do so much damage. This is even an insult to the other female character who manages to harm Thanos by her own power, Scarlet Witch. Unlike Captain Tampon, Scarlet Witch actually earned her damage against Thanos, in part avenging her lost android dildo Bettany from Infinity War, as well as having a redemption arc tied into her origin story, which, side note, between Scarlet, Widow, and Hawkeye, only he reverts to his prior behaviour. Nonetheless, by having her and Captain Tampon ragdoll him diminishes the male characters who cannot collectively win, and sets up the girl power moment. All of the male characters are torn down except for Token, and presented as either pathetic jokes, beta cucks, or both. The entire film is a non-stop attack on masculinity, like Frozen and Incredibles 2, an abomination designed to supplant the straight white male with females, minorities, and submissive white slaves. For all of the above reasons, I find it impossible to recommend this film, even to those who have already watched Infinity War. After all, it's not exactly a superior ending to Thanos wiping out half the universe. But I think I can fix it. Events play out as follows. After wiping out half the universe, he uses the gauntlet to make everyone forget about him, the gauntlet, and their dead friends. This leaves him in the state he's found in Endgame, before using them again to destroy the stones themselves, dying in the process. Only loose end is Ant-Man, who nobody will believe anyway, and who doesn't know anything about the stones in the first place. Besides, it's not like he's going to get his family either way. Probably end up in the nut house. You're welcome.